Wow. Happy Friday, everybody. It's a chilly one here in the Wood Whisperer shop.
We were just, I was wearing flip-flops 2 days ago.
Yeah, well, the problem is, normally it's not that cold in here. We went out to breakfast and we had the car facing the wrong way. Didn't notice that we left the stupid garage door open the entire time. So the shop usually hovers at around like 50, even when it's really cold outside. And it was below 40 by the time we came back in here and didn't have much time to run the heaters. So Nicole's got her little butt heater back there. Hopefully that's going to keep her warm.
Like, Nicole's cold.
You can always tell,
Drink
right?
if you're playing Wood Whisperer Bingo.
The Wood Whisperer home game.
I'm still a little sick too.
Yeah. So speaking of breakfast this morning, it was one of those moments that I think most parents know. When you look down at your beautiful little creation of yours and their face is beet red and they're going, and you know that there's something that is not processing properly. So Ava started to choke on what, like a little piece of bacon?
Yeah, she had bacon and she took eggs too. So
Yeah,
I think it was, her nose was stuffed and...
Well, she's got to breathe through her mouth, so she's trying to chew and breathe through her mouth. It's difficult for a baby. So anyway, she starts choking, and it was one of those moments where everything is in slow motion, but somehow Nicole's like the Flash as she jumps in one motion, pulls the baby out, and is like, bam, bam, on her back. And Ava's just like, what the hell? Oh.
She's like, "Bleh."
But she cleared it, and Ava's
well, she was
fine.
working it out. I mean, the key with kids choking is if they're coughing,
there's air going in and out.
there's air, yeah. So
you don't want to intervene and make it worse.
Exactly.
But either way, she handled it like a champ. She's like a mommy superhero. It was fantastic to see. Okay, so let's get into the stuff.
Well, something is missing this week.
My fly's up?
No, your beard's gone.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know anymore. It's hard to tell sometimes. Yeah, the beard is gone. I did get rid of the beard because I started a project in full, which I'll show you in a little bit. You know, and that Trend Air Shield thing, the more reading I did on it, and just the thought of having to deal with it, especially since I have to speak to the camera so often, just was not an appealing solution for me.
It would have been kind of cool to like decorate it like Halo style.
Yeah, make it all crazy looking. Master Chief looking, but that would have been fine. But ultimately, a simple respirator is really the easiest thing for me to use in my paranoid state of mind. And I sent it back to Amazon. So I shaved and we're back to normal.
Yeah, we're back to normal.
The other thing,
I would just say, I'll be monitoring the YouTube chat, and if you're asking questions, I'm putting it into a queue, and if we get to them, we get to them, right?
yeah, and I'm going to set my timer now.
Oh, yeah.
Forgot to do that. Set
But we
timer
also
for
have
35
questions,
minutes.
That we are getting to from...
I would love to tell you, but my wife keeps talking.
30 minutes.
I don't know what that means. If you like,
Set timer for 35 minutes.
Yeah, so...
Okay, 35
There we go. Thanks, hon. Okay, so very quickly, let's get through some of these announcements here. The Patreon reward levels, right? There's a couple new ones at the higher levels. I don't want to go into detail because we got a lot to get to here. But go check it out. There's some cool stuff. You want to just mention a highlight real quick?
We also set some goals. We, by meaning me, set some goals. And we've already hit our first goal, which is awesome. And it basically entails me starting to get back into turning, which I'm kind of excited about.
Yeah,
so,
it's going to be awesome.
I was like, I'm going to...
Nicole's going to turn something and then give it to someone when she's done. And as she puts
Someone being the patron. So
yeah, now it's your problem, as
So
she
now
says.
that we've hit the goal, I'm gonna get back into turning this week. And then on next Friday's show, we'll randomly pick one of the patrons on the live show, and I'll send it to them. And
that's great.
Like I said, it'll be your problem then.
Yeah, you deal with it. You can glue it back together. Okay, the other thing is metric thread taps are finally available for pre-order. You know, there was a huge outpouring of, especially the things I love the most are the debates, right? The debates that occur between people who are trying to say how short-sighted we are for not having metric taps. Yeah. And then I would respond and say, well, you guys have to understand, we're an American business. We have primarily a U.S. market. If we ship these things overseas, it's going to be expensive. Shipping, you know, overseas just costs a lot.
Yeah.
But, you know, we'll look into it. So we did. We looked into it. And the funny thing is, as if, like, I'd like to say I'm disappointed in the sales, but I knew this would happen. But it's a pre-order, so we're still going to honor the sales. Whereas the Imperial sales have pushed toward thousand, let's call it. The metric sales are less than 20. And that's fine. I'm glad to provide them. But when you complain to an American company about not doing this, plenty more than 19 people complained about it. And it just is almost just a little bit of "I told you so." You know, it's easy to.
I think in the days of how Amazon has kind of changed the mindset on how much it really costs to ship something.
Yeah. And the time frame it takes to ship
because I've been guilty of it. Well, I'll go on an independent site and I'm like, ooh.
That's right.
Ooh,
you still have to pay for shipping sometimes. But to me, it's the people who are griping about how dumb we are. And it's like, look, I would love to be metric, but this is the United States, and I have to follow what my customers and my colleagues and other people are using. So that's why we focus on Imperial. But when we do make the metric stuff for sale, it isn't like it's flying off the shelves as you guys, as the metric folks would have us believe.
Well, Old Plank Woodworks wants to know, can you partner with a European distributor to expand the marketplace?
We could, but not at this time. These things haven't been produced yet in the numbers we need them to. So that's something we'll look into. But during the pre-order period is us evaluating the market and deciding what we're going to do. So at this point, with what seems to be dismal sales on metric, we may not bother producing metric to a level that it would be even worth our time.
Andy's in the chat room and he said, "Get on it, metric people. Prove Marc wrong."
Prove me wrong. I would love to be wrong. I told Andy, I said, "Look, I'm going to tell you right now. I don't think this is going to be a dud." But you never know. You got to try it and find out. Okay, so real quick, let me catch up on the Trestle table. I am doing some woodworking. I don't just talk all the time, guys. Okay, Nicole, you coming on my YouTube channel saying you talk too much?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm going to be probably coughing this entire time.
It's okay. Here's one of the trestle table legs, actually. Here's two trestle table legs. So you probably remember from last time I talked about that walnut strip in the middle, creating a nice mortise location here, and everything went well. I've got loose mortise and tenon joints here on the top and the bottom, so we'll make those with a router, nothing too fancy. And it's really coming out swimmingly. I like it so far.
I'm really looking forward to having
I'm excited about it.
a table.
Totally.
The one we're using right now, somebody was giving away free.
From next door.
But it's too short, and the light fixture, I have nailed my head on that light fixture so many times.
Hopefully this will help solve that problem.
Yeah.
But this is coming along nice, and I got to tell you, here's the cool thing. I had talked about this on Wood Talk, that I was going to start this project and act like my tools never moved, right? So I didn't check any of my tools for calibration. I just fired them up and started using them. And here's the coolest flipping thing. Every one of the tools that moved with me from Arizona, my planer, my jointer, my drum sander, 14-inch bandsaw, all of those tools, rock solid. My jointer fence was still square, just as I left it. Nothing on the planer or the drum sander needed to be adjusted. Everything worked just fine. The only tools that slowed me down were the tools that were new to the shop. So my new bandsaw, I had to do a little calibration on. The new table saw needed a little bit of work. And the Makita chop saw needed a little bit of help. But everything that moved, and granted, I mean, you understand, this moved from a shop into a truck, off a truck into storage, from the storage back to a truck, from the truck into my shop, and then from in here to its proper position. That's a lot of movement, and every one of those things is rock solid. And I'm not going to say it's because it's Powermatic. I'm not going to say that it's not because it's Powermatic.
I would say it's Jones moving.
Jones moving. Yeah, well, no. I mean, people saw the video. It wasn't like they were gingerly with this stuff. But ultimately, good tools generally hold their settings better. And I think a lot of people want to know, other than like cut quality, what makes one brand different than another? Sometimes it can come down to that. How well does it hold the calibration setting so that you don't have to adjust it all the time?
He was so excited. He came in and he's like, I'm like,
well, it was like like nothing had changed. I'm in a different spot. Here's all my tools, and I was able to just start building. It was awesome.
Simon Brown wants to know, if we order the metric taps, can we swap the Guild project of the bed for another one?
Only if you already have the bed.
Only if you already have the bed.
We're being strict about that.
Because it's a
lot of work. There's a lot of people.
Nightmare.
Yeah, there's a lot of people placing orders. The reason we chose that project is because of its relationship to the thread tap concept. This isn't about just giving a free project. It's about giving a relevant free project. So we're providing substitutions only if you have that project in your account already.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to some questions here. It was interesting. There were grouped questions this time. There were like 3 bandsaw blade questions.
Oh, nice.
And then there were a couple different questions. I got them sort of grouped together here. So let's jump into these. I'll try to hit them as best I can. Our buddy Johnny V wrote in and said, what type of bandsaw blades are you using and why? Also, how are you storing the blades in the new shop? Well, I don't have that many extra blades. I say that as I have 4 blades in my hand. I don't even know, like some of these are just stock blades that I probably will never use, but I hang on to. I just, fold them up, put a couple pieces of tape or a little twist tie around them, and I put them on a hook on the wall. That's how I store them. Now, what I'm using at this point is on my 14-inch saw, I've got a very small blade. I like to use that almost as like a scroll type saw. It's a very, very fine, very small blade. On the big saw, that's brand new, and I'm using the stock blade. And I always recommend people use the stock blade for as long as you can. Wear it out. Because if you buy an upgraded blade, you spend a lot of money on that blade, wouldn't it be nice to know what you're actually getting for your money? Well, one of the ways to do that is to use that stock blade, which is generally not great, watch it get dull, and then switch over to this new blade, and you'll really understand why you spent that extra money for the performance of whatever that new one is. So what I've got on the big saw is the stock blade. I think it's about a 6 tooth per inch. Now let's take a little road trip over to the bandsaw. Bye, Nicole. Bye. Bye. I'll see you later. Okay, so over here is the 14, and give you a nice little view here. That's the blade I've got on there. Very fine, very small teeth, quite a few per inch, so there's plenty of, you got the ability to make very smooth cuts as well as very tight cuts. It's about a 1/4 inch wide blade that is kind of loose, and obviously this thing needs to be calibrated. I don't have it tightened. Let's move over to the big boy. On my PM 1500. Okay, now that's the stock blade. We're looking at, let's see. What'd you call that? 3/8? So it's about a 3/8 inch wide blade. I would say that looks about 6 teeth per inch, roughly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I would say about 6 teeth per inch. You don't have really deep gullets here. That's the space between the teeth. So this kind of blade, while it will work, this is really not going to plow through the material. And I found that to be very true. Cutting 8/4 cherry, which should cut like a dream, is a very slow process with this blade. So again, I'm going to use the heck out of this blade until it dulls, and then I'm going to throw it away and switch to something good. So what's good? Well, I would say something like a wood slicer is good. If you really don't want to dig into, hi Millie, hi Mill. If you don't want to dig into tooth configurations, teeth per inch, hook, rake angle, all that jargon, right? Mm-hmm. Just go with a wood slicer. They're sort of just kind of pre-configured. You don't necessarily even have a choice in its tooth configuration. It's just Highland makes them in the configuration they know works, and you just get a great cutting blade. So I think wood slicer is a great option. Lennox has some great blades. And there's another option out there which relates to one of these other questions I have here from Marc Nyland. He says, in the process of upgrading my bandsaw, trying to convince myself to get a carbide blade, like the Resaw King, that's Laguna's product. Is it really worth it for a weekend warrior? A standard blade is approximately 25 to 30 bucks, and I probably would go through maybe 1 or 2 a year, while the carbide blade is approximately $150 and can be resharpened 4 to 5 times. What other differences should I be considering? Okay, so the Resaw blade is fantastic. Now, it's really hard for me to tell someone that it's worth it. Can you get away without it? Of course, everyone does. Lots of people do. But does it make life better if you have it? It certainly can. And do the math on that. Find out how much it costs to resharpen over the course of the 4 or 5 times, how long that's going to last you. Because guess what? That carbide probably won't need to be sharpened as much as the replacement rate of a cheap, standard blade. Okay, so if you look over the course of time, how much you would spend, a lot of times those carbide blades will actually save you money. And you get the benefit of a better cutting blade throughout that entire process. So I am a big fan of the carbide blades, but I can't necessarily say it's worth it for everybody to go that route. But if you can get one on your saw and you've got the budget, I think it's a great option. They just cut cleaner. In some cases, if it's really fine-tuned, you get as good, if not better, than a table saw cut in some cases, which is pretty flippin' amazing. So that would be my recommendation, Mark.
I got a bandsaw question.
Okay. slipping in there.
Gonzalo Plaza says, are the tables on the bandsaws aligned? So if Mark needs to cut long stock,
Nope.
can he use one as a sport?
No, one is higher than the other. The 14 inches, like maybe 3 or 4 inches higher than the other saw. But everything's on wheels. If I need to move it, I can move it. So Joey Greer asked, I was watching the Krenov stand videos in the guild and noticed that you were cutting curves and dovetails with a very wide blade. How do you decide on the size of the blade for the curve that you're cutting? Is there a preferred tooth geometry for these types of cuts? Again, it kind of depends. If you're using the wood slicer, again, you don't really have much choice in that. I think in that video I was probably using my Resaw King, which is a pretty wide blade. I think it's 3/4 of an inch wide. Not for any other reason than it cuts cleanly. And if I'm just making simple straight cuts, it doesn't really matter how wide the blade is. Resawing, they say that the wider the blade is, it creates a little bit more stability, but some people believe that it also creates a little more friction. So usually what I recommend for people is about a 1/2 inch wide blade, but if you go for the carbide, you probably are gonna have to get like 3/4 of an inch wide. Excuse me. But when you're talking about curves, I don't know the exact numbers, and I would guess there's a chart somewhere because people love charts. There's gotta be a chart out there that tells you what type of radius you can cut with what size blade. Look it up, I'm sure you're gonna find it. Generally speaking, that's why I have my 2 saws. I do mostly wide curve cuts and straight cuts on the big saw, and then any kind of heavy radius is gonna be on the smaller saw. And this way I don't have to change blades. There is a point though, if you keep like a 3/4 inch blade and you only have one bandsaw, you're not gonna be able to cut certain curves. You just can't make the turn. And if you try to make the turn, you're either gonna jam it in the wood or you're going to lock up your saw and knock that blade off of its track, which
Where's your
would be a
scroll
nightmare.
saw at?
All the way over there, under the thing by the steps.
See, that's what I remember using in shop class. And we bent the blades.
Well, those blades are super fine.
We went through so many blades.
I
in
can only
shop.
imagine high school kids,
Middle school
kids and those tiny blades.
Oh, and I hated when I had to replace the blade.
Yeah, they've gotten better though.
Yeah.
The replacement systems are good. So that's really, just look it up. You'll find what you need. But I think the smallest I would go with is probably a 1/4 inch blade. I never really need much deeper of a radius than that, or small of a radius. On a big saw, I like about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch blade. Okay. Moving on. Chad wrote in. He says, I left a tabletop panel glue up clamped for too long, like months too long.
Whoa.
Hello. Now it's pretty severely warped. Any hope of flattening it? I currently have it under calls on a flat surface. Figured I'd try leaving it for a few weeks. Now I'll tell you, I know a lot of people do try to do that. You could even reverse clamp it where you put like, a shim or a paint mixing stick in the middle and then clamp the ends so you're actually reversing the bow. I've never had luck getting that to work and getting it to stay. Even if I could, straighten it a little bit. What is she looking at?
I don't know.
Our dog's focusing on something like she's hunting.
Wait.
I've never been able to get it to stick. There have been times where I'll even wet the surface and try to get it to reverse that way, and it might work temporarily, but it always seems to want to go back to whatever that orientation is that it was seeking in the first place. So there may be hope, but that hope might come in the form of cutting it down and gluing it back together. Because sometimes you look at the shape of the bow or the cup, and if you could determine that it's pretty much straight, but it just kind of cupped at this joint, you might be able to actually clip it down the middle, joint those edges, and glue it back together and get it mostly flat again. But if you're at final dimension, you might be kind of SOL. Depending on the application, sometimes you can actually sort of kerf the bottom of a panel. Now, if you're going to need to be able to see this thing, that's not going to work very well for you. But think about it. If you have a solid panel, cut a bunch of kerfs, you can make that thing flexible if you cut enough of them and you cut them deep enough. Right? So using that same concept, you could relieve some material on the underside and include some sort of bracing that holds it flat. So that's like major surgery on the table, and it depends on what kind of table you're making, whether that would even work. But generally speaking, as far as I'm concerned, once a panel goes, I don't usually have too much luck making it flat again, unless it's just rough.
Beat it.
Yes, step on it.
Punch it.
Punch it, beat it into submission. Okay, Scott Griffith wrote in, thinking of upgrading my table saw blades to the Forest brand. I'd be purchasing thin kerf blades. What are your thoughts on using a blade dampener with a thin kerf blade? Pros and cons. So if you're not familiar, thin kerf blades are said, allegedly, to vibrate, allegedly, to vibrate or sort of have a wobble to them because of the thin nature of the blade. So what they sell is an additional piece of steel that goes right up against it. It's about, I don't know, maybe 4 inches in diameter and has a hole for the arbor. And just goes in between, kind of sandwiches it in there, and that helps to stiffen the structure a little bit and supposedly gives you a better quality cut. I think in many cases it's BS. I don't think you need it. I wouldn't buy it unless you determine you absolutely need it. So when you throw that thin curved blade in your saw and you make a cut, and especially with a forest blade, they cut really nice and clean. If you look at that cut and it's nasty and, you know, super almost, you know, have sort of a corrugated effect to it, and you see a lot of scratch marks in it, it doesn't look good, well then maybe on your particular saw you could use that dampener. But I think in most cases it's not going to be a problem. So just cut it, see what the quality's like, and only then should you even think about buying that accessory. In most cases I don't think it's going to be necessary. Speg wants to know, vertical or horizontal lumber storage? Well, I like horizontal.
Yeah, but it's vertical.
Well, it depends on how you look at it. Let's see. I'll let you see it over there. That's my storage.
There goes Millie.
Millie, get in the house. That's right. So I like to go horizontal. All right. Now for me, that just makes the most sense with my storage situation in this shop. Vertical is nice because vertical means you have easier access.
You did vertical for your plywood.
Yeah, I did. Plywood's a little bit different. Mm-hmm. But, you know, when it comes to solid wood, once it's dry, I mean, you know, the boards, if you have really big boards and are leaning up against the wall, you might induce a little bit of bow in them at some point. But ultimately, it's so much easier to get to a vertical stack of lumber to get to what you need than climbing up on a ladder and trying to get boards off of a big shelf up there. So I think the vertical is more convenient. But in terms of wall space, it's, you know, that takes up less room. So if floor space is at a premium in your shop, you probably don't want to go with vertical storage. You want to go with something on the wall. It's out of the way, make use of that height, and this way your floor is clear, right? So honestly, I think you could justify both routes in terms of keeping the wood in good condition. I don't think it's going to matter that much. But I think it's a question of what type of space you want to consume with your storage.
Cool.
A couple more here. Keith, I inherited 5 bench planes, some older Stanleys, need to be rebuilt, have surface rust all over the sides and soles. Would these be better off as rebuilt by cleaning and investing in new blades and chip breakers? Or should I start getting the planes I need and want and hang these on the wall?
I've been seeing, especially in our guild Facebook group, a lot of people picking up like for $40, like,
flea
you know,
market
20 planes, they're just rusted, and you're like, what is that?
That's a pile of rust is what that is. Repairing old planes is a bit of a hobby in and of itself.
Yeah.
The rehabbing process, you either love it or you hate it. So if it sounds like something you'd be interested in, then go for it. See if you could turn those old planes into something usable. A lot of people do it, and it's a great way to put a little bit of sweat equity into it and not have to spend a whole lot of money. For me personally, you guys know me, I'm going to go buy the plane that I want because I don't really enjoy removing rust. I don't enjoy, lapping soles of planes for long periods of time. It's just not what I find fun, and I'm very lucky to have the budget to go do what I need to do. So that's a very personal decision, but just understand if it is a good plane, like at its core, it's good. You have a perfectly usable piece of equipment there that if you put the time into, you could rehab it and get a pretty usable plane out of it. And you'll learn a lot about how planes work in the process, which is kind of nice. Peter Swick says, ¿Qué pasa? I'm looking to upgrade my 6-inch jointer to an 8-inch jointer, and I'd like the longer feed tables and wider capacity. Looking at some new Powermatic with the helical heads and also old school 1940s jointers. You see the theme that we're going with here? Mm-hmm. And I'd like to refurbish and rebuild. Any advice on which approach? I'm handy and appreciate the quality of the older units, but also want to get woodworking as soon as possible. Budget is approximately $2,000. It's almost the same answer. Mm-hmm. If you find a good old tool, you could rehab it and just for a really, really good price, get a great usable functional tool. But it depends on what you're getting. You know, I can't see it, so it's hard to say.
Someone in the guild, somebody posted all of their old iron. Did you see that post? It was crazy. It's like everything was like super old.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't beat some of that old stuff
It
rehabbed.
looked kind of cool.
So it's worth.
I don't know if it works well, but it looked really
None of them
cool.
turn on, but they're beautiful. It's worth exploring, absolutely. But again, if you're really looking to just woodwork as soon as possible with the like path of least resistance, then obviously buying it is going to be the way to go.
Here's
a bunch of old hand tools.
Yeah, for $40.
Nice.
Thomas picked those up.
Very cool. So it's kind of the same answer that I just gave Keith with hand tools. It's kind of the same concept. But again, if it's if you find a gem, a diamond in the rough, it may be worth rehabbing that sucker. Okay, and the theme relationship continues here. Terry says, "Hi Mark, I'm buying a jointer. Was wondering if you have any preferences to a spiral or a straight knife machine." Absolutely a fan of the spiral. I don't think it makes as much of a difference on the jointer in terms of just general performance. It's nice on figured woods, certainly. But in terms of calibration, setup, and maintenance, you cannot get better than a helical head. Basically, if you're not familiar, let me show you.
Don't you have a video on
I got a
that too?
helical. I have a video of me installing a
it.
helical head,
Yeah.
which we can reference if someone wants to see it go together. Sorry about the camera movement here. It's live, baby. Okay, so you see those little cutter heads there? Each one of these is a little carbide head that you can actually loosen and rotate. So you have effectively 4 functional sides of these little cutters. So even when it gets dull, you basically just loosen them all, turn them all 90 degrees, mark which face is used, and go on. Whereas if this was a straight knife, you'd have to send them out for sharpening or sharpen them yourself. Then you have to recalibrate it as you put it back down into the cutter head. It's a night and day difference in terms of maintenance and care for this thing. So 100%, if you can get a helical head on your planer and or jointer, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. I think that's absolutely the way to go. Coming back, yo. All right, I think that was my last question from patrons.
That was Terry? Yeah, that was Terry.
So-
no, what about,
Is there another one?
yeah, the
Oh, okay.
Jose?
So there you go, Terry. Joso.
Joso.
Or Yoso. Joso or Yoso. Do you pronounce the J? Which wood species would be good for a cutting board? Any difference between face grain and end grain cutting boards there? You know what? I would say people have used just about everything in cutting boards. And there's a lot of precautionary measures out there in terms of like, don't use this exotic, this is immediately going to kill anyone who uses it. And people do it, but I've never heard of anyone necessarily getting sick from a cutting board, because the reality is, how much of this stuff are you truly ingesting? On the other side, on the flip side of it, it's why take a chance is what it comes down to. So I think most people are using domestics for their cutting boards. You'll find a lot of walnuts, cherry, and of course maple. Maple is sort of the go-to. Birch is fine as well. Generally speaking, you want to avoid anything that has really wide open pores, oak, ash, and even walnut. Those have pretty good sized pores on there. Pores being places for stuff to go, meaning liquid and things that could start to turn into bacteria farms, right? So you got to avoid those if possible. But again, stick with domestics and you'll be fine. You go into the world of exotics and you're just kind of, who really knows for sure what those are going to do. But me and my family have been using a maple and purple heart cutting board for quite some time.
I love that thing.
And, so far, no one has necessarily had any adverse health effects from it.
Do you have Smith Work TN wants to know, do you have a video on sharpening a forstner bit?
No, I've never sharpened a forstner bit on video.
Yeah.
Basically, most forstner bits you're going to find there's those 2 sort of cutter heads to either side of the spur. And you can grab one of those little diamond plates, the handheld diamond plates, and kind of sharpen it up a little bit that way. But I've never done that.
All right, so I have a ton of questions.
Oh boy, how much time do we have? 10 minutes.
Yeah, probably not enough. But anyway, I've grabbed a whole bunch. And
Let's do it, sister.
so Taylor Wood wants to know, there's a good question about rip cuts on the Guild Facebook page. Could Mark elaborate on the best quality cuts on the table saw technique-wise rather than setup-wise? Did that make...
I'm not 100% sure on the question. He wants to know what good techniques there are for ripping.
Elaborate, rip cuts, yeah. Elaborate on the best quality cuts on the table saw technique rather than setup.
I don't think you can separate the two. I think good technique coupled with good setup is what's going to give you good results. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, basically it comes down to controlling the workpiece. Sometimes you could use feather boards and hold downs to help you do that and get better results. Sometimes it's just a matter of using the right push stick to get that thing through. But generally speaking, if you're talking rip, you want the best quality cuts, then you need to use a ripping blade. I've got a 40-tooth combination blade. That works just fine for most things, like a lot of these cuts here on these pieces of cherry. I've got a little bit of burning here, not a significant amount, but there's some there. But that 40-tooth blade handles that just fine.
Oh, I think it was the post where somebody was saying how clean your cut looked.
Yeah, I
and then you
responded on there,
showed-
and I said that looks like a perfectly reasonable cut to me.
Yeah.
But if you have a ripping blade, you're going to have a sort of a cut that has less friction, less chance for burning, and you can keep your feed rate nice and fast. And fast might be the wrong word.
Steady. Nice
and steady. Okay, if you go too slow, that's more times that those teeth are rubbing up against the side of the piece of material, and you can get burning and extra friction and heat, dull your blade, all that fun stuff, burning the wood as well. So I think using the right blade and then any other accessories you need to keep that workpiece steady is fine. But for ripping cuts, unless it's like a super sensitive thing or there's a safety reason, I wouldn't use feather boards on just your average ripping cut, as long as I can control my workpiece and send it through. But really, that's all there is to it.
I got a question.
Yes, Nicole. How may I
James
help you?
Dunn wants to know, what gaming podcast were you on a few weeks ago? And I told him in the chat room I wasn't on a gaming podcast. I was on Current Geek, which is a podcast by Tom Merritt and Scott Johnson. And then I also do the morning stream on Wednesdays. Some people don't even realize that's me. So
Yeah, they haven't made that connection.
They haven't made that connection.
This is the Nicole from the morning stream on Wednesdays.
So if you're not familiar with the morning stream, it's a really fun.
It's a great morning show.
It really is.
4 days a week.
4 days a week, and they even do one Thursday night
Thursday
too.
night. TMS PM.
Brian Ibbett, who Marc built the covercade for, and then Scott Johnson, who is all things everywhere. Gosh, he does so much.
He's a busy dude.
I used to do a gaming podcast called Ladies of Leet, and I'm actually talking to Kim and Stephanie, and we might be bringing it back.
That's never going to happen.
That is. You're terrible.
All right, next question.
Yeah. Let's see, a thread taps question
Oh,
from Quick Enough. Any reason you couldn't use a wwthreadtaps on non-ferrous metals?
Ferrous metal?
Ferrous metals?
I don't know. I mean, if you want to use a tap in wood, just buy a wood tap. I wouldn't buy the Wood Whisperer thread taps for that. I mean, it could work. Andy would know better than me. You might want to ask him. But if you're going to buy the Wood Whisperer thread taps, use them in wood.
Yeah.
But again, non-ferrous metals, tend to be a little bit softer. You can get away with certain things. But if you're going to do that, then I would just say buy metal taps. They're going to be cheaper and probably work better for that purpose.
I think I had another thread taps question. Somebody asked if they had to be a guild member to buy the taps, and again, no.
No, you don't. And this is one of the problems we're addressing with the new version of the guild site, is the impression that you need to be logged in to do anything. And if that were the case, how would any new members come in?
Right.
Because you have to buy a project, right?
Right.
Even if you're a non-member. The membership aspect comes in when you're checking out. That's when you create your account. But the fact that there's a login up there with no other information about what to do with that login is a little bit confusing. So we understand that. But no, you don't need to be a member to do that.
I had two people ask you if you could review the Multirouter. So Kevin and Reciproco want to see you do a review of the Multirouter.
I could. We live in a online society now that anything that costs money is shunned, and you're made, honestly, to feel like a jerk for owning it. And it's a shame that that's the way it is, and I shouldn't necessarily let a few, bad apples spoil the bunch, but it is really hard when you're very much in tune with the community. You listen, you're always there to try to adjust on the fly, to do things better and do what the community wants to see. But when you start to get that feedback, it does matter. Like, even if you tell me it doesn't matter, it's still hard for me to go, yeah, let me show you this tool that costs thousands of dollars. Because then all I'm going to do is read hundreds of comments from people telling me about Matthias Wendel's thing that he built and how you could do it this way, and it must be nice to be rich. Comments like that. So that's why things like the Domino and the Multirouter don't get much love. I love the tools myself, but even on this project, what tool do you think might have done this a whole lot easier than a router and an edge guide. Probably the domino, right? But I didn't use the domino. I used the router because I want to try to make it more approachable for more people. And I also don't want to have to read all of that feedback, So it puts me in a real tough position where I'd like to explore those certain things, but it makes it difficult when I don't even know if it's the vocal majority or the vocal minority. I can't really tell.
Carl has he says, put it on the offcuts. I think that's where
I could put it on the offcuts, but even then, it's like I don't know. I know. It's hard to decide what content specifically goes on the offcuts.
Yeah.
Because of the audience difference in size. Whatever goes on the offcuts gets a little bit shortchanged, and we take that, like we do that on purpose with certain content because we don't want the crappy feedback, and we'd rather just have fun with people who enjoy what we do. That's why Friday Live is here, right? So that's a good option. We have that option. Good point.
Yeah, Billy says, don't worry about the negative people. It is so easy to say that.
Here's
really
the thing.
is.
People want us, and I say us as podcasters, us as online content creators, people want us to care about them. They want us to listen to them. They want us to communicate with them.
Yeah. And we want to.
You cannot do that without enduring morons, right? Not you guys, but people who come along who probably don't even care about what they're watching and just want to ruffle your feathers. So in order to care about the good stuff, I personally cannot separate giving a shit, excuse my language. I have a problem separating.
Banned.
Here we go. We're done. I can't separate giving a crap about the good people from giving a crap about the crappy people. It's really hard to literally sort of open your heart to feedback from people who are nice without then being a victim or possibly opening yourself up to injury from people who are jerks, right? And then people are like, oh, you got to grow a thicker skin. If I have a thicker skin, do you know what that means? That means that I'm apathetic about this, that I no longer care about what you think, right? So if I care about what you think, then I'm open to, sort of criticism, and it will hurt when I read annoying stuff.
It's an interesting thing because most people, when they see somebody on film or camera or anything, even with celebrities, they almost become not real. And we do this in day-to-day life.
You objectify them in a sense.
We're all guilty of it. So.
Well, and that's why a lot of times I will take the time to reply to someone, and I even get crap from people who, like, you can get crap for anything. Doesn't matter what you do. If I give a troll crap and I let people know about it, then I get crap from other people because I'm being a jerk to the troll. It's like, come on. But a lot of times I will get a troll to delete their comment.
Yeah.
I will say something to them, whatever it is, that either makes them feel stupid or makes them feel I'm not worth messing with, and they will go back and just delete their comment. And that's a victory to me because that's one less piece of crap comment living in our comment thread.
I just wish people would put good things out. Like, we're here trying to encourage people to do woodworking.
Yeah,
blah, blah,
and
blah.
ultimately, here's what we do. Most of the time, if someone comes in, like this morning, someone came in on the router inlay video and said that you talk too much. Do you know what I set up? I set up a keyword thing that automatically puts a comment in spam, quotes, you talk too much, right? Because that is not helpful. I really don't give a crap if you think I talk too much. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. Gone. Yeah. And what we started doing was hiding people's comments. I want, as much as it's like a free and everybody can make comments on YouTube, I don't think jerks have a right to speak, in my opinion, on my channel, right? You could speak anywhere you want, but on my channel, if you want to be a jerk, you're going to be banned. And YouTube has a shadow ban thing, which is great because you ban them and they have no idea they've been banned. So they can keep commenting and they think, oh, I'm going to tell this guy something, and we'll never see it. So that's actually what we usually do, but once in a while, we will make an example of someone.
Let's see. I'm having trouble with names today. Pikes?
Oh, that's an interesting name.
Pike.
Let's just read the
Piker
question.
size. Who wants to know if we've done an office desk project yet? And
I haven't. That's been much requested.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had that requested a lot. It'll happen, but no.
Hey, guess what one of the Patreon goals is?
Marc takes his clothes off?
No.
Oh.
I'm going to say we probably wouldn't get much money from that.
I don't know. I think there's a couple girls that find me not repulsive.
Anyway, one of the goals is that once we hit the goal, I can't remember what the goal amount is. I'm gonna start sending out surveys to the patrons to vote on the next Wood Whisperer project. So give them a list. So maybe we'll put the office desk in there and a few other ones, and whatever floats to the top is what goes out on the free site with free plans.
Nice. Michael Gomez says, I like feisty Mark. Get me talking about trolls and yeah, we'll go off the rails.
Kyle says he has a customer wanting a bed built.
No, my fly is not down again,
No.
you guys, you jerks.
And I showed him the platform bed in the Guild. My question is, do you have any recommendations to stretch the span to a California King?
You can, and I don't remember what size it was. Was it
was
a queen?
king. I thought it was a king.
I don't remember.
Because we brought our bed out. Or no, wait.
Yeah, I think it was a queen. Because
You're
we
right,
had
it is
an extra queen bed.
Yeah, we had an extra queen.
I don't think I necessarily provided the plans for that, but we do have a working SketchUp model, and really when it comes to bed sizing, just got to expand it. Keep the joints at the end the same, add more material in the center of your rails, and everything can move. Who's at the front door?
I don't know. Probably
Male lady.
Male.
So yes, you can do that. It should be fairly easy to do, but we don't necessarily give you the numbers.
Yeah. Let's see. Douglas Wright wants to know, what was your first wood project, and do you still have it?
No, it was a bookcase, right?
Yeah,
for my mom.
for your mom.
It was a wobbly oak bookcase that was just garbage.
On the Patreon's feed, I put Marc's second project. So I'm doing these, I call them Throwback Fridays. I'm digging back through the vault, and I'm posting just stuff that, I mean, we've been doing this for 10 years, so that I have like a treasure trove of stuff. And every Friday...
I don't know that I'd call it treasure. It might just be a trove of stuff.
A trove of stuff. But I post something every Friday, and Marc's second project where he's humping it.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, and that was the type of book, the bookcase I tried to build for my mom. That was my second go at it, and it was for my mom's friend. Definitely came out a lot nicer.
I wonder if she still has that.
She probably does.
Yeah.
Okay, one more question and we got to go. Someone's seriously asking, why did we move to Colorado?
No.
That has
yeah.
become an ongoing joke. So whenever I post a new video, someone will go, why'd you move to Colorado? What's up with the beard? Why do you hate Cremona?
You just go on the website, you'll find the article. Sorry.
That's
David Price wants to know, not to sound like an ass, but
oh, David,
what's
what an
the
ass.
difference? What's the difference
What's the deal?
between wwtap and a regular extended machine tap?
Go to the website, wwthreadtaps.com, and you'll
There's a
see the
video,
rundown.
right?
There's a video on it. There are a few key differences. The bottom line is, here's my not great sales pitch, okay? If you already have metal taps, I don't know that you want to necessarily scrap them and buy these. This is for people who don't necessarily have taps already, who will only be tapping wood. These are simply better. The hex shank means you could easily fit them in a drill. They are designed in such a way for good chip clearance. We're even doing we're not going to talk about it much, but we're playing with some stuff dealing with the taps themselves to see if we can actually make them even better and stronger than what you would normally get with a metal thread tap, but more on that in the future. It's kind of a back-end thing that we're playing with right now. And I don't know, look at the website. Here's the thing, I didn't invent these things. I just believe in them, and I think Andy did a good job with designing them. But ultimately, they are an improvement in wood. So that's really my sales pitch. But when people are like, well, I could just do that with my metal tap. Well, so did we. That's the reason we're doing this, because we have used traditional metal taps to get the job done, and they work just fine. That's why we like this process. But if we can design one that's a little bit better, a little bit more well-suited, the length is a little bit more appropriate, the way it cuts is a little bit more appropriate, and the way you could interface it with tools you have, like a drill, things you're going to want to use, it just makes more sense to have those. So that's really what it comes down to. And I'm not trying to sell anyone wood thread taps if they've already got this great set from Harbor Freight that they really love.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Well, I have other, but my program
It's frozen,
locked
huh?
up.
I saw that.
It was doing the spinning wheels, so I can't scroll down to see anymore.
Yeah.
But if your question wasn't asked or answered today, it doesn't mean we don't love you. It's just I get inundated with questions, and I just try to throw them to the side. But if you want your questions answered, head on over to patreon.com/ Wood Whisperer. And you can, there's a tier for specifically these guys. All these questions came from those patrons.
They did, yes.
What are you looking at? You're like,
I'm reading chat. I can't.
Oh.
When I see chat going by, I have to read it.
Stop reading.
It's an incredible distraction. Just to thank a few people
oh, yeah.
on Patreon: Travis Schweiger, Aaron Olson, Jordan Ellison, Matt Green, Brian Erickson, Chris Labe, Donnie Knight Jr. Sounds like a singer for like NSYNC.
No, New Kids on the Block.
New Kids on the Block. Donnie Knight Jr.
Donnie and
Okay.
Jordan Knight.
Chris. It's a shame that I even was able to make that reference. Christopher Davidson, Andrew Gibson White, Ken Harvey, Christine, just Christine. The car or the person? Antonio Ramos, Josh Gary, Andrew Haig, and Terry Carter and Chuck Hart. Thank you so much.
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
And those higher level rewards are pretty awesome. There's some fun stuff there. Nicole put some cool pictures there too.
I did.
Which is pretty funny. Good stuff.
So there's a new level where people can get a signed picture of you.
I can't believe you're doing that. Just to let you know, this whole signed glossy of Marc thing is not Marc's idea.
Yeah.
It feels weird. It's awkward for me to do. But she's saying, Marc, do this. I'm doing
giving
it.
you an option. You can have a signed glossy of Marc. You could get a personalized note card, or I'll pull a scrap piece of wood and he'll sign that too. So whatever you want signed. Basically, Marc's signing something, and I'll be in contact with you.
Yeah.
And then there's I added the one-on-one with us. So.
Oh yeah, that should be cool.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever just wanted to have a one-on-one conversation with these two, me and him, I guess.
Yeah.
But,
Want to talk about kids, dogs,
whatever you want to talk about.
Dobermans, video games.
Yeah. So there you go.
All right, I think that's it, right?
I think so.
Yes. I have much work to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for watching, and yeah, we'll see you later.
Stay if it's snowing at your.
Stay frosty.
Yeah, stay frosty.